Welcome and thank you for standing by. I would like to inform all participants that your lines have been placed on a listen-only mode until the question and answer session of today's call. Today's call is being recorded. If anyone has any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would like to turn the call over to Phil Thompson. Thank you. You may begin.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Phil Thompson, and I want to welcome you to today's Explaining Monthly State Retail Sales, an experimental data product webinar. The Monthly State Retail Sales, or MSRS, is a new experimental data product featuring modeled state-level retail sales. More timely data products like the MSRS are proving to be extremely valuable to our data users, providing additional insight on the state of the economy. MSRS provides year-over-year percent changes for total retail sales, excluding non-store retailers, as well as 11 retail North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS retail subsectors. This webinar will be recorded. The webinar recording and transcript will be available between 5 to 10 business days after this presentation. So if we experience any technical delays, please utilize the chat feature to notify us of any issues that should arise, and we'll do our best to address them. And lastly, at the end of the presentation, we'll open up lines for a question and answer session. And to allow everyone the opportunity to ask a question, we request that you ask one question and one follow-up question. Well, at this time, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Rebecca Hutchinson. Rebecca is the team lead of the Economic Indicators Big Data team. I now turn it over to you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Phil. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar. As Phil mentioned, I am Rebecca Hutchinson from the Economic Indicator Division at the Census Bureau, and today I will be discussing one of the Census Bureau's new experimental data products, the monthly state retail sales. These state-level retail data are some of the most requested data from our data users, and we were excited to finally release these data at the end of September 2020, especially since the retail sector has been so impacted by the pandemic, and providing our data users retail information at more granular geographies was a really high priority for us. Previously, state-level retail sales information was only available once every 5 years as part of the economic census. The high cost of survey collection and respondent burden has made survey-based state-level retail sales difficult and costly to obtain. So these data are modeled, and they required no new data collection. These are the first version of these experimental data, and we do plan to refine the series, and we invite data users like all of you to provide feedback on how to improve this experimental product or on potential third-party data sources that could be used in the creation and validation of these data. Our data users have already provided us with a lot of really good feedback since September, and we'll be highlighting some of that feedback in a later slide. So what are we publishing? We are publishing year-over-year percentage changes for each state and the District of Columbia for total retail sales, excluding non-store retailers, as well as for 11 of the retail subsectors as classified by the North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS. Some of these published subsectors include motor vehicle and parts dealers, food and beverage stores, and gasoline stations. At this time, we are not publishing food services, but we do hope to do so in the future. We are also not publishing non-store retailers, which is NAICS 454. Non-store retailers are primarily e-commerce type businesses, and the best method and data sources needed to attribute e-commerce sales to state geographies is a bigger challenge that we still need to work through. For those NAICS that we are publishing, though, we are providing year-over-year percentage changes back to January 2019. The state-level data are not, adjusted for seasonal variation, trading day differences, moving holidays, or price changes. And we do hope to publish levels in the future. The state-level retail estimates are created using a composite estimator that is a weighted average of the synthetic estimates and hybrid estimates. The weight used is a ratio of the variance of the synthetic estimates to the total variance of both estimates. The synthetic estimates on the left of this slide make use of survey data and administrative data in the form of payroll. The hybrid estimates on the right of this slide use third-party and survey data from our monthly retail trade survey, as well as modeled establishment-level data. If a retailer in our monthly retail trade survey operates a single store location, or it operates many store locations, but all in the same state, their data can be used in these state estimates. Now, one of the cool features of the monthly state retail data is that it makes use of alternative data sources. This helps us avoid any new data collections. The third-party data can either be sales by individual store location data for a retailer, or it can be aggregated state-level sales data for a curated list of retailers. At this time, our requirement for the third-party data is that we know which retailers are included in the data. When working with third-party data providers, they often have privacy protections in place that prohibit them from revealing information about the composition of their data. There may be potential to use other third-party data where we don't know the specific retailer composition, but that would be a long-term improvement to the product. Now, there are some limitations to this methodology. First, both the synthetic and hybrid estimates are based on the assumption that there is a strong relationship between retail sales and total annual payroll. There are also additional limitations to the hybrid estimator. We do not impute for retailers with a single store location that are not in our monthly retail survey, and instead we account for them using a national industry-level adjustment factor. The composite estimator itself also has some limitations based on the fact that the state sales estimates in each retail subsector are calculated independently each month. The year-over-year percentage changes that we publish may exhibit more variation if the coverage changes or if the portion of the composite estimate coming from the hybrid model changes between the years. Now, keep in mind that these state retail data are experimental and they may not meet the quality standards of our official statistical products. But to allow data users to assess the quality of the data, we are providing a variety of quality metrics. Each monthly publication includes the standard errors and a coverage measure to provide some indication of how much directly collected data from either our monthly retail trade survey or from third-party data is included in the estimate. The quality of the model should improve with better coverage. With the monthly state retail sales data, we are now able to see variations in retail sales activity across the country on a monthly basis, which is really quite exciting. On this slide, you can see the year-over-year percentage changes for total retail sales, excluding non-store retailers, for each state in January, April, and December 2020. States shaded in blue have positive year-over-year changes, and those in orange have negative changes. In April 2020, when much of the country was impacted with pandemic-related store closures, you can see that much of the country had negative year-over-year changes. But by later in the year, in December, as stores reopened, much of the country had positive year-over-year changes. On this slide, you can see a similar presentation of the data, but for general merchandise stores in NAICS 452. Here, you can see a bit more variety in the year-over-year percentage changes across the country, especially later in the year when the middle and southern portions of the country have positive year-over-year changes in the blue, but the western portion of the country is generally negative. I discussed earlier how alternative data sources are a key input to the monthly state retail sales data. One other way that alternative data sources have been incredibly helpful to this work is the validation process. Very often when validating results, Census Bureau data is used as a trusted benchmark. When you are creating a new Census Bureau product, finding sources to assess the validity of the estimates can be difficult. We are always actively seeking out state-level retail data sets to compare against. Thus far, we have focused primarily on some private third-party data sets from payment processors for comparison, as well as retail sales tax data published by state taxation and revenue departments. A few of these states actually publish this data by month and by NAICS, which makes it incredibly helpful for comparisons to our estimates. Here, you can see a comparison of our state retail sales data compared to retail sales tax data reported by the taxation or revenue departments for the states of Kansas, Mississippi, and Nevada. The navy blue line is our data, and the dashed purple line is the state tax provided data. Now, these data can align really well, as you can see in the Kansas graph. But we sometimes do notice large swings in the tax data, which you can see in the Mississippi and Nevada graph. We are exploring the availability of monthly data by NAICS from more states, as well as getting more insight into some of those swings in the tax data. As I mentioned earlier, our data users have already provided us with a lot of really nice and helpful feedback since the first publication. This slide highlights some of that feedback we have received. And if you use this data or the data from any of our experimental data products, I would encourage you to reach out to us with your feedback. We really do use and value this feedback as we work to improve these data products. And when I demo the website shortly, I will point out the email address where you can reach out to us at. So what is next for our monthly state retail sales data? We are actively seeking out more third-party data sources to be used as inputs to the estimates to improve the quality of the data. We also hope to publish levels in the future. That is something our data users ask for on a regular basis, and we are working on it. And we also need to determine how to allocate e-commerce sales to the states. And now I want to do a quick demo of the monthly state retail sales website and show you what is available on the site and how you can access the data. But on this slide, I have shared the link that will take you directly to the monthly state retail sales website. Okay. The monthly state retail sales website can be found on a tab on the monthly retail trade site at census.gov. At the top in the introductory information, you can see that email I talked about where we can be reached with any questions or feedback. The data box contains a wealth of useful information in addition to the data. First is an overview document which provides basic information on the monthly state retail data. Next is a technical document which provides highly detailed information on the data and the methodology. And last is a data dictionary which explains all of the variables and values in the data set. In addition to the data, each month we publish a report highlighting some of the data. And of course, the data itself. We publish year-over-year percentage changes, standard errors, and coverage measures. These files are in CSV format. When you click on that CSV link, you will see this. And I know sometimes data users panic when they see this and don't quite know what to do here, but CSV files are very easy to work with and access. All we need you to do is right-click on that CSV link, select Save Link As. After you save the file, you can access it in the spreadsheet software of your choice. Underneath the data box, we have a really cool data visualization. This data viz allows data users to navigate through the data and change the view by month, state, and retail subsector. For example, if I am interested in food and beverage stores in my home state of Wisconsin, I can select food and beverage stores from the NAICS dropdown. And then I can either select Wisconsin from the state dropdown on the right, just underneath that NAICS box, or I can also just click on the state of Wisconsin in the map. You'll notice here when I hover over Wisconsin, it gives you a little summary of the food and beverage sales data for April 2021. And then when I click on the state, you will notice that the graphs underneath the map update and provide more insight into the state's data. Now, if you are also interested in exploring other months of the data, in the upper right corner, what you can do is toggle between the months using the arrows under the month box, and it will refresh the data viz with a new month's data. One other cool feature here is you can save off an image of the map and the graphs that you just curated. These images are really great to put in a presentation slide. You just need to click on that button under the image and select to save off an image file. Underneath the data visualization, you will find the next release date, which, mark your calendar, is tomorrow at noon. And we also have a full schedule of the release dates through the end of the year available. And that is a quick demo of the monthly state retail sales data website. A lot of good information available there for you to look at. And that data viz is pretty fun to play around with, so I hope you check it out. And with that, I wanted to thank you all for joining us today. And I think we can move on at this point to take some questions.
Thank you. We will now begin our question and answer session. If you'd like to ask a question on the audio line, please press *1. Please unmute your phone and record your name slowly and clearly when prompted. Your name is required to introduce your question. Again, that's *1 if you would like to ask a question on the audio line. At this time, we have no questions on the audio line.
Bill, are you on mute by chance? I can't hear you.
Oops, I guess I am on mute.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
While we're waiting, I believe there's no one that asked any questions, but one that we typically get on a regular basis, and I believe you covered it in the webinar itself. So when is the next data release?
It's actually tomorrow at 12 o'clock. We are publishing the May 2021 data. So please check it out then.
And so, just based on the data itself, I know it's a monthly data. Can you tell me do you have like a release schedule or anything like that, Rebecca?
Yep, the release schedule is available right on the website. It's near the bottom of the website. In the demo I showed you, we typically release the dates throughout through the end of the year, so you can easily see the dates there. But next release is, in fact, tomorrow.
Okay, terrific. Are there any other questions? If you don't want to ask a question over the phone, feel free to ask a question on the chat line or in the Q&A. Actually, I do have a couple. I have a question that someone asked. Is there ask menu tax by city? Is that?
Let's see. So I'll try to answer this question. So currently we are only doing state-level sales year-over-year percentage changes. We are using, and as I noted in the presentation, we do use some state sales, retail sales tax data that the states make available. We do use that where we can, but currently we are only doing state level. We haven't really explored at this point doing any more granular geographies at this frequency.
Okay. I guess another question that came in, are actual data values available, or is it at a percent change, or presented as a percent change?
Sure. Right now we are only publishing year-over-year percentage changes. As I mentioned a few times in the presentation, we are aware people really want those levels. We are working on it, and we do hope to publish those in the future. We would, of course, announce that on our website before we do that, so I would just keep an eye out for that.
Okay. Let's see. Operator, are there any other questions that may have come through on the phone line?
We do not have any more any questions on the phone line.
Okay, and there's one more that at least I typically hear about on a regular basis. Are the data available at the county level? Are there any plans for?
I think we need to do some research to determine the feasibility of publishing at that level. There are some challenges that come with going to even deeper granularity than at the state level on a monthly basis, but it is part of the long-term research plan.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions that are either covered.
I see a question in the chat. I can grab it here, Phil, if that's okay. How did we select the NAICS levels that we are publishing at currently in the retail sales? If I'm interpreting this question correctly, we tried to select all of the 3-digit retail subsectors that we could. The only ones that are currently excluded are non-store retailers, which is NAICS 454. That is due to, as I mentioned in the presentation, determining how to allocate e-commerce sales to state geographies is a challenging problem to solve, and we just haven't solved it yet. We are working on it. And then the other one that we will add in eventually is food services, which is NAICS 722. Otherwise, we do cover the remaining retail subsectors that our monthly retail trade program covers at the national level. We just have those 2 exceptions.
Okay. I'm not sure if there's any other questions. We'll give everyone on the line one last shot at for questions. So Operator, can you check one more time if there's anyone that wants to ask a question on the line?
Definitely. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 1. Again, star 1 if you'd like to ask a question. One moment.
I see another question here in the chat that we can talk about a little bit. It's a good question. I wonder if the difference in the tax data are due to those e-commerce sales. It's a really good question. We are hoping to dig in a little bit more into those state tax data. We found them pretty helpful for comparison reasons. They really kind of enrich our analysis of the data. And e-commerce is, it's a challenge. And one other challenge that kind of adds to these comparisons is we classify things in certain NAICS, and the individual states may classify them differently. So it's not necessarily a one-to-one comparison. So that's why we generally use them as a guide and how we use all third-party data sources in our comparison work. I see another question here. Do we share our models? Yes, they are in the technical documents that I highlighted in the demo. Every month we do update. It's near the end. I think it's either page 12 or 13. We do include a specification of the actual model that is used each month. So you should be able to find all of that information there.
And I did have one question come through on the audio line, if you're ready for that.
Sure.
One moment. Reggie, your line is open.
Yes. I have a question. If you don't have an organization name, when you do the survey ratings, what do you put for that information?
Is this related to a general survey question? Is that correct?
Yes.
Is this related to the state retail sales? Okay, why don't we, I can point you in the direction of someone that can help you later. If we can get the contact information from you, if you can share that with the operator, we can certainly assist you. And I'm seeing a couple more questions here related to the data viz, which is exciting. We really love our data viz. At this point, I don't believe you can select multiple states on the map. However, I will bring that suggestion to our data viz developers to see if that is something we could implement in the future. And then I also see a question here that will data be available to download rather than just the images? Absolutely. If you remember in the demo, I showed you those CSV files. They contain all of the data. That is where you can access it. The data viz is there as well. So you do have the opportunity to download both data and the map and graph images. There is a question here about what about renewable energy equipment? Is that a NAICS that is tracked? I don't know that answer off the top of my head, but I can certainly look into that and get back to you with an answer. Any other questions? Happy to answer them, and really happy to talk about state retail sales.
We have nothing on the phone line.
Okay. What would you like to do, Rebecca? Would you like to stay one more second or one more minute or so?
Yeah, why don't we try one more minute, give everyone else a chance to ask a question here. Let's see. Any more come in? Otherwise, I know sometimes when I'm in webinars and presentations, the question doesn't occur to me till like an hour after. The contact information was in the slides. I don't know if our moderator can maybe post that email address in the chat, but please feel free to reach out to us via that email address. We usually respond pretty quickly, and we're always happy to help you out and to answer any questions, hear your feedback on it. we are, like I said, this is an experimental data product, so we are always looking for improvements to it, and we really just want to make it as useful for our data users as we possibly can. Oh, there's a very specific question in here. Is the plus minus value in the tooltip the 90% confidence interval? I believe it's our measure of error. Deanna, our methodologist, is on the line. Did you want to jump in here with that answer?
Yes, I believe if I'm reading or understanding the question, if the question is when you have the hover bar of a state where it has a state sentence and it has a plus or minus with a range in, that is the 90% confidence interval margin of error that would be associated with that state's estimate. It's based off of the standard errors that are also available.
Awesome. Thanks, Deanna. Great. Well, thanks, everyone. It was really fun doing this and answering all your questions. And they did put the email address that you can reach us on the monthly state retail sales in the chat. So if you think of a question and as soon as you log off, please feel free to reach out today or anytime.
Okay. Well, Rebecca, thank you very much for providing this presentation. I've learned a lot, and I thought I'd do a little bit about monthly state retail sales. So thank you again. And thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. This will conclude today's presentation. But if you could, there should be a short survey right after you close out of the webinar itself. If you can provide the information on that survey, I would, and not just I would, but we would definitely appreciate it to let us know what you think, and if you have any suggestions for future webinars. And please stay tuned for the presentation and slides that we posted on our website. And thank you very much, and have a terrific day and have a terrific weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.
That concludes today's conference. Thank you for participating. You may disconnect at this time.